So Caesar is dead. You'd think the fight for Rome would be over, right? Well, you couldn't be more wrong. The fight has really just begun. The Republic is completely shattered. And in this breakdown of Act 4, we're going to watch as the conspirators' so-called noble cause just absolutely crumbles into chaos, jealousy, and, well, their own destruction.
Okay, to really get a grip on Act 4, you've got to see it as a tale of two powers, a showdown between two very different teams. On one side, you've got the triumvirate. That's Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus. They are cold, they are united, and they are absolutely ruthless. And on the other side, we have our conspirators, Brutus and Cassius. They are hot-headed, they're divided, and they're desperately clinging to these ideals that are just slipping through their fingers. This clash, this contrast, it's the key to everything that's about to happen.
So we kick things off in the new heart of Roman power. The first scene just drops us right into Antony's house. And let me tell you, the triumvirate isn't debating policy or laws. Nope, they're making a death list. And with every single name they scratch onto that list, the fate of the Republic is being sealed. Not with justice, but with cold, hard blood.
So what is this list exactly? It has a pretty official-sounding name from ancient Rome, prescription. But trust me, there is nothing civilized about it. It represents political power in its most brutal form.
A prescription is basically a state-sanctioned hit list. If your name ends up on it, you are officially an enemy of the state. That means anyone, literally anyone, can kill you on sight. No trial, no judge, no questions asked. This isn't justice. It's a purge. It is power at its most absolute and, frankly, its most terrifying.
And this is the moment where that mask of the noble, honorable Antony just completely falls off. When his own nephew's name comes up for the death list, does he pause? Does he hesitate? Nope, he shall not live, he says. Just like that. Then, the second his supposed ally Lepidus is out of the room, Antony calls him a slight unmeritable man, basically a useless pawn. He even compares him to a donkey, only good for carrying their burdens until they can get rid of him. And get this, he's already planning to cheat the public by changing Caesar's will, the same will he used to whip the crowd into a frenzy, all so he can get more money for his army. This is the real Antony, cold, calculating, and completely ruthless.
All right, let's leave the cold, quiet cruelty of Rome and head out to the heat and dust of the military camp at Sardis. Because here we see the complete opposite situation. While their enemies are uniting and getting organized, the very friends who killed Caesar together are about to tear each other apart. The alliance between Brutus and Cassius is about to completely implode.
And boom, it explodes right from the jump. Cassius doesn't even pull Brutus aside for a quiet word. No way. Right there, in front of the whole army, he yells an accusation that just cuts to the bone. You have done me wrong. That little crack between them, it's about to become a full-blown earthquake.
So what is this massive fight all about? To keep it straight, just remember the acronym GMO. G is for gold. Brutus is furious because he says he asked Cassius for gold to pay his soldiers, and Cassius turned him down. M is for money. Brutus accuses Cassius of having an itching palm. In other words, he's calling him corrupt. And O is for officer. This is the real spark that lit the fire. Brutus publicly disgraced one of Cassius's officers, a guy named Lucius Pella, for taking bribes, even though Cassius had personally asked him not to.
Now let's pause on that phrase, itching palm. This is not some casual insult. This is probably the most damaging thing Brutus could possibly say to Cassius. He's saying Cassius has become corrupt. That the very honor, the very principles they killed Caesar to protect, Cassius is now trading for cash. It's a total betrayal of everything their cause was supposed to stand for.
And Brutus's reply is just one of the most powerful lines in the entire play. He says he would rather be a dog, a dishonored animal howling at the moon for no reason, than be a corrupt Roman like Cassius. In that one single moment, you can feel the friendship breaking. The gap between them is now just way too wide to fix. Okay, so after all that screaming, the anger starts to cool, and the mood of the scene just changes completely. We go from a personal fight to something much deeper. We're talking tragedy, fate, even the supernatural. And we're about to finally understand the grief that's been secretly fueling Brutus's rage this whole time. And here it is, the bombshell of the scene. Brutus finally reveals that his wife, Portia, is dead. He says she was so overwhelmed by his absence and the growing power of Antony's side that she took her own life. This huge, private grief, you realize it's been twisting his judgment and fueling his anger this entire time. It all suddenly makes a terrible kind of sense.
But the tragedy doesn't stop there. As the night gets darker and deeper, Brutus is sitting all alone in his tent trying to read. And then he gets an unexpected and absolutely terrifying visitor.
It's the ghost of Caesar. It doesn't say much, but it really doesn't need to. Before it vanishes, the ghost delivers one bone-chilling message. Thou shalt see me at Philippi. And the meaning is crystal clear. There's no escaping what he did. His fate is sealed. The battlefield at Philippi, that's where this all ends for him.
So after an encounter like that, they somehow get back to talking military strategy. Cassius, the more experienced soldier, has a smart, logical plan. Stay put. Make the enemy come to them, make them waste their supplies and wear themselves out. But Brutus, maybe still shaken, maybe with that ghost's voice in his head, he argues for the exact opposite. He says they have to march to Philippi now and attack.
And to justify this, Brutus uses this absolutely beautiful, famous metaphor. It's an incredible piece of philosophy about seizing the moment. But as a military strategy, it's a disaster. It's a fatal error, and he overrules Cassius, who just gives in. And with that one poetic, philosophical line, Brutus has sealed their doom.
All right, we've broken down the act piece by piece. Now let's turn all this analysis into your exam power-up. Seriously, you might want to grab a pen for this part, because this is going to help you lock in those top marks.
Okay, here's a question you are almost guaranteed to see. Why is the quarrel scene so important? And here's your answer. It is the turning point of the whole story. Why? Because it completely shatters their unity. It puts their biggest character flaws right out in the open. Brutus's stubborn self-righteousness and Cassius's greed. And it really marks the start of their moral collapse. From this point on, Brutus is calling the shots alone, and he's making one bad decision after another. Now let's talk about some common traps to avoid. First, don't get those GMO reasons mixed up. Second, always remember that the real trigger for the fight was Brutus punishing Lucius Pella. Third, never underestimate how much Portia's death is messing with Brutus's head. And finally, that beautiful Tide quote, remember, it's not just philosophy, it's the excuse for a really, really bad military decision.
And here it is, the pro tip that'll make your analysis stand out from the rest. If a question asks you to analyze the conspirators' moral decline, here's the best way to do it. Contrast them with the triumvirate. Talk about the conspirators' messy, emotional, disorganized quarrel, and then compare that to the cold, efficient, ruthless unity of Antony's team. That comparison perfectly explains why their noble cause was pretty much doomed from the very start. So all of that leaves us with one last question to chew on. At the end of Act 4, you've got two very different leaders left standing. You have Brutus, who's being driven by his grief, his rigid honor, and now ghosts. And then you have Antony, who's driven by pure, cold, calculating ambition. So the question is, which one of them is the more dangerous leader? It really makes you think, doesn't it?